Okay, it is recording. Great, we're on again.
Yeah.
This is a regular occurrence now, isn't it?
Yeah, we should bring more people on board.
I know there are more people coming to the Nervous for Newbies channel, so yeah, it's good. So, okay, so we know what we're going to talk about, don't we?
Yeah.
DeFi, right?
DeFi. Yeah, DeFi.
Okay, so the amazing world of DeFi. So, okay, so as far as I understand, DeFi, Decentralized Exchange, is where you go to swap and exchange cryptocurrencies without going necessarily to without going to a third party, right?
Yes, there's also lending and compounding, like savings products. DeFi has all
Loans as
that.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
There are derivatives platform tokenizing assets. They've got everything.
yeah. So just for the new person, anyone that doesn't know what DeFi is, because actually surprisingly, I don't think a lot of people in crypto know what DeFi is. So how would you explain it? Is it just like we say decentralized exchange and that's it?
Yeah, so DeFi is like having a sort of bank that has no actual owners. It's a computer network that provides financial services, and nobody has to ask permission both for acting as a client and for acting as a provider. So if I'm interested in working, like earning money from lending, I can put my money there, and other people could could borrow the money from me, and then I would get some interest out of that.
Yeah.
This is pretty much it. So you don't need a bank anymore to try and earning money from it or borrowing or anything.
Yeah, because if I wanted to send you money, I would have to do it via a bank, wouldn't we?
Yeah, we can exchange fiat money, or we can do like wire transfer, but this requires some central authority, and these are the banks and the government that authorizes the banks. The big banks ultimately has all the power, and the central banks, they kind of orchestrates everything. But if I do a complete redo of everything, a makeover of all the financial system in the world, this is pretty big stuff that's happening right now.
This is actually what blockchain really is trying to do, isn't it? It's trying to make everything fair, everything equitable, so that ordinary people don't get ripped off by the banks in any way. Like, you know, I think, I don't know if you've heard of the something that happened in Cyprus called the bail-ins.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have here in Brazil too.
Oh, you do? You have, really?
Of course, even more than in the US. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right. So yeah. So anyway, so DeFi, decentralized finance. Nervos hasn't really got involved in this yet, has it?
Yeah. The curious thing about DeFi today is that the second biggest competitor is actually a centralized exchange, which is Binance.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have the BSC, Binance Smart Chain.
Yeah.
Which they're trying to migrate applications from ETH blockchain to their own, but then there are just a few validators, like 20 validators. All of them are authorized by CZ, which is Binance's owner. So yeah, it's we're still in DeFi infancy. If the government just don't like what Binance is doing, they can just shut it all down.
Yeah.
But that's not actually possible in Ethereum. In Ethereum today, we have a true DeFi movement that's happening. The government can't shut it down. But then on ETH, we have high fees. So the average
yeah.
the average user can't take part in that as much as he would like to. So
Yeah, so basically, whenever you do a transaction on ETH, then it's between 30 and probably about up to $120 per
yeah,
transaction. So you can't
yeah,
make
there are
small purchases, can you? Like if you want to buy, if you've got, I don't know, Ethereum and you want to swap it for another coin and you've only got $100 to invest, you know, half of that or even 3/4 of that could be taken out by gas fees, which are like transaction fees.
Yeah, if you are actually able to pay for the transaction, but sometimes the transactions won't make it to the end because there are so many people racing for their transactions to be actually done in ETH network. And this is the true value of a blockchain. People today people are realizing how much value there is in a blockchain validation, a public blockchain, and Ethereum is a public blockchain. So
Mm,
yeah, it's just a scarce asset.
mm.
Being able to validate a transaction on a public blockchain is a scarce asset, is a scarce resource. So people are paying high fees because of that. And then we have the first one, which is Ethereum, outrageous fees. We have the second one, which is Binance, centralized. It's no blockchain. It's not public. It's it's just not supposed to be there because it's not. It doesn't follow up with the philosophy of the blockchain movement, which is decentralized.
Are you talking about Binance? Yeah.
What?
Are you talking about Binance here?
Yeah, the second
Yeah.
guys in the room, they are
Yeah.
centralized. They're not even public and permissionless. By permissionless, we say anybody just
Can join,
can
can't they? Yeah.
and lend their money or borrow money from everybody else and all of that. So yeah, the government could shut down Binance at any point. So
But there's also Tron, I think, has decentralized exchanges as well. I'm sure. There's a few
yeah,
others, aren't they? Yeah. I'm
yes,
starting to
they
see it's
they're
everywhere, really. Yeah.
yes, other blockchains are starting to keep that thing going. So
Okay.
we have, I think there's true decentralization when we have several different blockchains trying to do the thing, because many of them are just public, permissionless, or permissioned at some point. We have Binance, which is the more centralized one, and the variation, the different blockchains that are in space today, they are providing the decentralization in so many different levels. And then there's Nervos. Yeah,
Yeah,
they,
and you know, Nervos has recently released, I think maybe it's a beta version of its sort of decentralized DeFi application called GliaSwap, is it?
GliaDex on the test,
GliaDex.
and GliaSwap will be in the mainnet
Yeah. So
soon.
so here's a question. Yeah. So we've got all these up and coming DeFi
Okay.
sort of systems or places where you can do, you know, swap your currencies.
Mm-hmm.
And I read recently a paper called "Why Nervos."
Let me ask you something. Can
Gone.
you hear the song?
Can I hear?
Can you hear a song?
No.
No. Okay, good. Because
I
somebody
don't.
just just turned the music on here, and the volume is
No,
quite
no,
high.
it's
So,
not here. It's not here. Maybe
oh,
it's the music
amazing!
in your head playing.
Yeah, my neighbor is just listening to some stuff here. So
um,
sorry.
yeah. Okay. So I recently read a paper saying why Nervos Network will be the final destination for DeFi.
Okay.
So I'm curious to know, you've obviously read a lot about Nervos, studied
Mm-hmm.
it in depth, no pressure. I want to ask, why do you agree with that possible, you know, final point that Nervos could be a really good place for DeFi? And if so, if yes, why?
Yeah, I've read about it. I don't believe in too much hype right now.
Mhm. Yeah.
what I believe in Nervos is it is already a great blockchain to host DeFi apps, but uh, I don't believe it's going to be the final destination. The final
Yeah.
destination. I believe it's going to be a good place, right? So that's what I'm counting in.
So why would it be a good place?
it has so many good features. I think that one of the biggest worries of users when they're going to DeFi in Ethereum, for example, and I think every other blockchains are doing that. They have to delegate their assets, their coins, their tokens to a centralized account, and then if someone can hack into that account, the user can more easily lose their his or her funds. So this is a pretty big concern, which is the centralization in the account model. And
Are we
Nervous
talking
doesn't.
about smart contracts here?
Yeah, the smart contracts has to have the custody of everybody's assets, so you can just run the computations. And we don't have that in Nervos. In Nervos, any user would be able to take part on a smart contract, participate on the smart contract, but the authorizations for taking the assets in or out of the smart contract is tied to the user's own private keys.
Okay, right.
So it's like I keep the custody of my tokens, and I still can participate in a DeFi pool. So if anybody wants to hack the account, let's say that we have a smart contract with 1,000 people, the the tokens, the funds are owned and in our custody by the 1,000 users. So if anybody has to go and steal those assets,
They can't do
the
it.
hacker has to get everybody's private keys to do that.
Okay,
It's
so
really
this is really good because my very first experience of DeFi, I'll share my story. There was I'm not going to say the currency that I invested in, but I hadn't learned about DeFi and I decided to go full in on Ethereum on Uniswap. It was for a new
okay.
launch, and I put my I think there was a new coin being launched or a new token to be being launched on the Ethereum chain. Invested money. I put it into a liquidity pool.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's basically where you have two tokens of the same sort of equal value, as you know, and then you
Yeah.
put it in and you provide liquidity for those token exchanges. And
Mhm.
what happened is a lot of people did the same thing. They put in, and it was about, I think it was about $1 million worth of sort of investment into this liquidity pool. I think there's
Okay.
3 in total. And what happened was within a day, the smart contract had been exploited and everyone's funds got removed to another wallet address and everyone lost their funds.
Yeah.
So would that kind of thing, is it less likely to happen on Nervos? Or would it still
Yeah.
be possible? Or it depends on the exploit?
The main exploit that's being used today would not be actually possible to be exploited in Nervos.
Yeah,
But everybody that's going in DeFi or blockchain space, they have to be aware that code will have bugs,
yeah,
period.
yeah,
Yeah, and sometimes code will have vulnerabilities. So even in Nervos Network, we are prone to have bugs and vulnerabilities, but the decentralization is a very important aspect, this decentralization of the account model, so that everybody owns their own funds while participating in a smart contract. It's taken care of from the start. So that one we don't have in Nervos. But yeah, we can have others.
yeah,
So it's just a standard. You should really do a good research in any pool you're going in
yeah.
because yeah.
Which, if I'm honest, yeah, and this is the thing that I learnt and that I didn't do enough research. And to be honest with you, even if I started, I wouldn't have known at the time because it was my first foray. And funnily enough, my first foray into DeFi, I went into and the contract got exploited and I lost 90% of my funds. Thankfully, it wasn't a huge amount. I know,
no
I
way to
know.
get those back.
Huh?
Yeah, there's no way to get those back.
Well, this is it, and this is exactly, but to be honest with you, I then realized how powerful DeFi was, because then I started to, when things go wrong, as you know, when things go wrong, that's when you start to learn. That's when you really start to understand. When
Yes.
things are going right, you don't really, okay, you learn a bit here and there, but when things go wrong and you try and fix things, then you really start to understand how something works.
Yes.
So yeah, it was
Bang my head against the wall if I was in your place. And I would cry a lot about it. And then I would try to learn it one thing or two. Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause
Okay.
it's
So we've
it's hard.
covered security. So one of the things that I've written down here is that so obviously we said staking in pools, liquidity pools, isn't as vulnerable in Nervos.
Yeah.
And in the article it says proof of work is involved in the protection of assets, whereas in proof of stake it isn't. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Would you agree with that? Or
Not
am
that.
I misunderstanding that?
The thing with proof of stake is that the programmers can just do any kind of computation they want. They can issue assets as they see fit. So proof of stake today is being used to attract investors at the beginning, bootstrapping of a new DeFi contract. But high yield percentages are truly not, they are not sustainable on the long term. Because if everybody has too much tokens, it will worth nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a thing that's happening a lot in proof of stake. I don't like it. And this is why I keep out of just most of the pools today. And proof of work, on the other hand, you have a clear perspective. The ones who have the best computation, they will win the game. And in the case of Nervos, we have the tokenomics behind it, which
Yeah.
grants
Yeah.
that any person can hold the coins and get an inflation shelter. It's somehow like DeFi, but it's not quite a proof of stake pool. Yeah, but this is a whole other subject. I don't like proof of stake because um, in proof of work, to be the best one, you have to contribute with computation and energy renewal initiatives. You got to be good in energy production.
Mm-hmm.
So and having the fastest computer. In proof of stake, your the validators, they are looking for the best way to allocate the capital so that they have the biggest stake at the beginning and they can maintain that stake over time. So they get very good at uh, having bank deals and
Mm-hmm.
doing all sorts of math for being ahead of the game. And this at an ultimate instance, it's going to create people who are very good at borrowing money so that they can have the biggest stake. I guess we have plenty of that in the market right now, right? So you
Yeah.
have
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
big bubbles going on in all countries. In each country has its own bubble, financial bubble, and I guess for a bigger contribution, uh, proof of work is much better than proof of stake because
Okay.
I'd rather be in the market where people are doing science, hard science stuff, and research on clean energy and better computer models, fastest processors, than uh, investing in people who are good at borrowing money, and getting the biggest stake first. So, yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's move on more of about DeFi and Nervos. So,
Okay.
so in this article that I read, and I'm going to put a link to this article down below this YouTube video,
Okay.
and it says DeFi operations clog space, which creates a state problem. And I know you understand about this state problem. I know we discussed it in our previous videos about
Yeah.
how Nervos solves that space problem or state problem.
Yes.
So can you explain it from a DeFi perspective? So how would that help? So
Okay. So we can take an example from the stock exchange. A regular stock exchange will have lots of transactions each day, and these transactions has to be recorded somewhere.
mhm,
So this is happening in Ethereum right now. Lots of transactions, they have to be recorded. But how can you actually um, how can you do it in an economic way? Because as the DeFi space grows, more and more people will drive the demand for more computation and more
yeah,
validation of transactions. So it's a reality that just any blockchains will have a growing number of transactions. They have to be recorded somewhere in a trustless manner. Trustless means I know that if I record this in this blockchain, it will be immutable. It will be a proof
unchangeable. Yeah,
that my transaction took place. So in Nervos, if we have DeFi coming in, we have, of course, much more transactions over time. The price of transactions will go up, obviously. This is just the nature of the tragedy of the commons. If there's a good thing that many people are wanting to get involved, the demand will be higher, the price will sky high. But then Nervos has the design, the L1, L2 design, layer
and
one and layer
yeah,
two. So the thing with layer one and layer two is this one. If we get too many transactions on layer one, the price of the transactions in layer one will go high, and the next people who are coming in to Nervos to get those transactions, they can start to move the transactions to the layer two, which is like a second layer in which you can have computation going. And if before you were like paying each individual transactions in layer one, when the cost is too high, you can just get like 10 transactions done in layer two and validate every one of those transactions in one single transactions in layer one. So
okay.
you get a hardcore like economy there.
And that's because of Nervos's layered approach to its blockchain,
Yes.
right? Because
Yes.
it has, you've got the foundational CKB layer, and then the upper level layer, like you say, can actually result in lots of transactions acting effectively as one transaction. So you don't have that. It's in fact effectively it's also much quicker, right? It can be much quicker.
Yeah, you've got like limitless scalability possibilities in Nervos.
Yeah.
The TPS is just unlimited. People will go into all those discussions about what's the fastest blockchain, what is the blockchain that has the highest transactions per second rate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Nervos just turns all into that, turns all of that into an obsolete conversation.
Okay, so just because we mentioned the speed, we've talked about the security, but the space again, just clarify the space issue that
So
Nervos is.
the thing with space, if you can aggregate all those transactions in layer two
Yeah.
and just do an aggregate transaction in layer one, you need
Ah.
less space to record the transaction, because the layer one in Nervos is called the common knowledge base. And
Yeah.
what it does is really, it doesn't record the full details of the transaction. It just record like a fingerprint of the transaction. And just any transactions, including a group of transactions, you can extract this fingerprint. And the fingerprint we call a hash. The hash is just a string of random characters.
So one hash could potentially represent lots of different transactions, yeah? One fingerprint.
Yeah, it can represent just one transaction, like me borrowing money from the pool you're in, or it can represent 10,000 transactions.
A
Like
million?
some people going into the lending pool you have your
Mm.
money in, and all of those transactions being recorded one time only with just one hash in layer one. And at layer one, we get the information recorded in the miners database, the miners hard drives. So
Right, okay. Which is, like we mentioned before,
it's the same.
CKB is a storage of space. So it's going to be recorded within that, because one
Yes.
CKB equals 1 byte.
Yes. Yeah, and then we come back from the developer's responsibility. Each developer into Nervos ecosystem, he has to plan how much space he wants to store in the blockchain. So
Mm-hmm.
he's got to pay for it. He's got to pay by buying the CK bytes, the CKB tokens, like 1,000 CKB tokens for 1,000 bytes, or he can rent the CKB tokens from a holder. So he can rent or just buy the CKBs, and then he will be able um, to allocate that space in the miner's hard drive and in layer one trustless blockchain. So,
Okay. So with DeFi,
so we don't have the state bloat problem, because now we can just getting the whole puzzle together. We can have 10,000 10,000 transactions on layer two. We get one hash, and we get a programmer in layer one that's forced to think and pay for the storage. So now we have the whole industry, the whole ecosystem thinking holistically and economically and in a sustainable way. So yeah,
explain this state problem again, just so I can clarify it. What's the state problem once more?
So the state problem is in Ethereum, which is the biggest blockchain, any programmer can program a dApp and just record as much information he wants in the blockchain. This creates a continued growth of the hard drive space required.
Right.
And over time, in the next years, when DeFi really takes off, it's still in its infancy, but when it really takes off, it will be impossible to pay for that storage. So we need to do TPS and storing the blockchain database in a different way. We have to rethink it.
And this is exactly what Nervos is doing.
Yeah, this is exactly what Nervos did already. It's already in place. Yeah, it's already on mainnet.
Yeah, and it's
not a promise. Right there.
And it's come up with an amazing solution, right? It's an and this is the other thing I learned, and this is not really to do with DeFi, but there's 2 layers to Nervos, isn't there?
Yeah.
But the Nervos programmers have also added parts. Well, I don't know what they call it as a programming term. I don't know, where you can add a 3rd layer, can't you, as well? There's another layer that you can add.
In layer 2, you can just do whatever you want, because you will be hosting the application off chain. So this is another good thing. In Ethereum, for example, when you have a DeFi contract, the Ethereum miners are doing the calculations and the state changes. this is done in chain. On Nervos Network, the team opted by allowing off-chain computation and on-chain validity of the transaction. And this is what Bitcoin does. The Bitcoin network doesn't care how will you create the combination of wallets to transfer some Bitcoin to other person. Your wallet do that off chain and send the transaction to Bitcoin. Like this wallet will have this. It the Bitcoin has inside, you call it UTXO, which
Yeah.
is unspent transaction output.
Yeah.
You got the cells that are not that has the balance on the input, the cells that are supposed to be the output, and then there are some sort of validation rules that the Bitcoin network will just check on those to actually validate the transaction. So in Ethereum, Ethereum computes everything. It will like calculate how will the how the intrinsics of the contract will work. In Nervos, you can do the computation off chain and just send on chain to get the validation going.
Okay, and for the average layperson, what does that mean? What's the benefits of doing that?
Okay.
The computation off chain and the validation on chain.
So miners, the miners' computers will be much less required in
Processing
computing
power.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have to have as much processing power to compute what the program is doing. This can be done off chain. So you can just pay a regular AWS. You can just pay for doing that on cloud. It's much cheaper. Today it's very cheap to pay computation in a cloud service provider. And then you use the miners' computers just to do the very best thing that they should do, which is to check if the inputs and outputs are valid.
And that is
So
the most important thing, right?
the very most important thing, which is checking on those fingerprints, seeing if the inputs and outputs follow a certain rule defined by the developer. And this is huge because you're using the most expensive computation power to do the most valuable work.
Yeah, which seems, yeah.
Yeah, Nervos layer one doesn't care how the contract should work. It just care about is the inputs and outputs valid? Is the are these hashes really do we have integrity in the hashes? And this it's all about cryptography, which is um, a very expensive computation work to be done. So
Okay, all right. I think you've explained that very well. So what I'm going to do just to end this is basically, okay, we're going to go back into just talk about DeFi once more, but in short summaries. So why is Nervos so good for DeFi? So just give me so with regards to space. So just give me a quick sentence with regards to space, quick sentence with regards to speed and security as well. So
okay, it's regarding the sustainability of the chain. It's pretty well thought. It's very economic, and it can get the miners interested in at all times. Miners will get what they want, which is rewards and lower costs for their own computing resources.
Yeah.
We get a very intelligent and elegant way of allocating the most valuable computations to the most expensive processors. So we get just hard cryptography being validated on layer one. So we create responsibility in programmers' minds because they can't just abuse the network. They can't just write anything they want and store data indefinitely. They have to be responsible for what they are using. They have to pay for the space they are using. So it's it's a big thing compared to other blockchains. We also have decentralization of custody. So
What does that mean?
you as the owner of the assets, you are tying those assets to your, it's like participating on a smart contract, but maintaining your tokens in your own wallet.
Like you
So
said
it's,
before about private keys. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So you keep in your own wallet, but you can get all the benefits of participating in DeFi. You don't delegate to anybody. It's all on you. You authorize, and you are the one who's signing to take this off. And this is pretty big. So many big things. And you have unlimited scalability and let's say unlimited speed of transactions and a, a way to cheapen costs indefinitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very, it just allows very cheap transactions at a very high speed in a very secure, decentralized way on a public permissionless blockchain, which nobody can take out. It's, when I think about all of that, it's truly a big thing in the industry right now, and it's just starting. Yeah.
And it's huge, isn't it? It's literally, it is. It's just starting, and I mean, I think what the team are doing is amazing. I think ultimately,
They're geniuses.
yeah,
Here
yeah,
to
I know.
the genius of those people. Like every day I wake up and read some more about Nervos and go, yep, they're geniuses.
Yeah. And I'm thinking I should, I'd like to buy some more, but
Yeah. I know
yeah,
how that, I
yeah,
know that.
yeah. Yeah, and often when you see something amazing as well, that's the other thing. When you see something really just groundbreaking, you're like, I really want to invest in that. I really want to, because you can see from the onset how amazing it is, especially when you go into depth about it. And
Yeah.
this is really good when I'm speaking with people like you, and that really get this, that understand it, and that can explain it in a way that a lot of people can understand. So thank you
There are
very
more
much for that,
things.
Rodrigo.
Yeah. There are more things to talk about
I know,
DeFi.
and we will do
We
more.
don't
We
have
will
the time.
definitely do more.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, I
Okay.
did want to talk more about the Glia decks, and more about how that works, but we can leave that for another time. And
Yeah, let's do it another time.
yeah, it's cool. I don't know how long we've been talking for, but all right, Rodrigo, you take care of yourself.
You too, man.
Yeah, take care. Much love to the family.
Cool, you too. Bye bye, Daniel.
Bye.